Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources and really dig into them to find the most important knowledge and insights.
And today, we're definitely diving deep. We're looking at excerpts from Callan Coates' work on the energy evolution, which focuses on, well, the pretty extraordinary ideas of Viktor Schauberger.
Yeah, extraordinary is a good word. This isn't your standard physics textbook material. These sources outline a vision for energy, for motion, even for ecology that feels, well, almost like an alternate reality. It's all based on copying nature.
Exactly. The texts paint a picture where water isn't just H2O, it's the blood of the earth, where movement could potentially be frictionless and energy, well, the claim in the sources is that it could be generated almost for free if we just understood nature properly.
So our mission for you today is to navigate these quite dense excerpts. We want to pull out the key ideas, the really surprising bits, and hopefully those aha moments where these complex concepts sort of click into place.
Mhm. And we'll be contrasting Schauberger's proposed nature's way directly with conventional technology, at least as it's presented in this source material.
We'll touch on his main theories, things like his patents for an air turbine, special pipes. We'll look at his experiments, particularly with water flow.
And importantly, his really sharp critique of, well, the way we currently do things in science and technology.
Okay, so settle in. You might find yourself looking at a simple stream of water, or even gravity, a little differently after this. Right, let's jump straight in. The sources identify Schauberger's absolute bedrock concept as nature's true form of motion. He gave it a name. Cycloid space curve motion. Sounds technical.
It does, yeah. And the text immediately contrasts this with what Schauberger saw as the big mistake of our technology, basically thinking and moving in straight lines, linearly.
Okay, so let's break that down. Nature's motion. The sources point to swirling rivers, tornadoes, planets orbiting, even blood in our veins. It's described as fundamentally unwinding.
Right, inwinding, moving inwards. Also radially axial and centripetal. The key thing is it pulls mass towards the central axis of the movement. Think of water going down a plug hole.
Got it. And conventional tech.
Mostly the opposite, according to the text. It's outward, axially radial, and centrifugal, like a standard pump or a centrifuge flinging things away from the center.
And this difference, the sources argue, is absolutely crucial. This natural centripetal motion, it's described as building things up, synthesizing, creating life.
And here's a really wild claim in the text. It supposedly leads to a decrease in friction and resistance. It even states that power increases by the square of the velocity.
Whoa, hang on. Increases. Usually resistance goes up with velocity, right? Friction gets worse the faster you go.
That's the standard understanding for outward centrifugal motion, yes. Friction and resistance increase by the square of the velocity. But the source claims Schauberger found the exact opposite for natural inward centripetal motion. Resistance drops, power increases. It flips that core principle.
Okay, that's a big claim.
And the conventional centrifugal motion we use. The source says it does the opposite. Breaks down, decomposes, wastes materials, increases friction and resistance by the square, and generates harmful heat. So it's presented as decay versus creation, simply based on the direction of the spin. And tied right into this motion distinction is temperature. The sources highlight Schauberger identifying two basic temperature gradients or conditions in nature's processes.
Right, and these gradients seem to dictate the quality of the energy produced. So first, there's the falling temperature gradient. Cooling.
And this is linked in the text to nature's inward motion, implosion, biological growth, synthesis, life creation. Basically, the good stuff, producing beneficial energies.
And the flip side is the rising temperature gradient. Heating.
Exactly. Linked to conventional outward motion, explosion, decomposition, breakdown, life destruction, and generating harmful energies and waste products.
So the idea presented is that energy gets released where these gradients meet. But whether it's creative energy or destructive energy depends entirely on the type of motion and the materials involved.
Yeah, and then the text brings in these concepts of subtle energies, which are, well, pretty out there, but key to his claims. Things like fructogens for, like, fertility and growth.
Qualigens for generating quality or vitality.
And biogens, which sounds like some kind of immaterial energy amplifier. It's complex stuff.
Qualigen seems really central, though. The source describes it as this essential, upwardly radiating energy, crucial for life, growth, thinking clearly, even fighting off disease. A lack of it means decline.
And it all circles back to the motion. Natural processes and machines built like nature are said to produce these high-grade energies. The text uses terms like biomagnetism, levitation, synthesizing current.
Whereas our conventional machines, they're claimed to produce the opposite. Electricism, gravitism, a destructive cavitating current, and the source even mentions something called cadaverine poison. Yikes. It's a very stark contrast. Life energy versus death energy. Okay, so principles are one thing. How did Schauberger actually, apply this? The sources talk about several inventions that tried to mimic nature.
Yeah, a big one was pipes and water conduction. He apparently observed that our normal straight pipes cause turbulence and friction, which the source claims actually damages the water, reduces its vitality.
But what did he do?
Well, the text described tests with specially shaped pipes, spiral ones, helicoid ones, like a corkscrew, and even egg-shaped pops. There's a mention of a specific egg shape with a sort of curved dent in it.
And the results?
Pretty remarkable, according to the source. Dramatically lower friction, one claim mentioned, is even zero friction in some tests with helicoid pipes, plus increased flow rate and suction.
Zero friction. That sounds almost impossible. Does the source back this up?
It references specific data tables and diagrams. Table 1, Table 2, Diagram 7, Diagram 8, comparing his designs to straight pipes, showing differences in output and friction loss. The underlying idea is this natural swirling flow densifies the water, cools it down towards its special +4 degree C point, and actually revitalizes the watercourse.
Wow, the text even mentions using this flow to transport heavy ore.
That's in there, yes. Or heavier than water, supposedly carried along by this energized flow. It challenges how we think about moving fluids.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? There was water ennoblement.
All right. This was about creating noble water, water with enhanced properties. The source describes a device that cooled water to its densest point, +4 degrees Celsius, added carbon dioxide, specific trace elements, and crucially, used this inwinding centripetal motion.
And this noble water, what were the claims?
Pretty significant claims. Things like dissolving kidney stones, killing harmful bacteria, increasing potency, stimulating appetite, and elimination. The source gives details on the recipe and mentions a device built at a factory owned by Rudolf Zeitlinger.
Okay, moving from water to air, the air turbine. Patent 145141.
Yeah, he apparently called it a breathing machine or vacuum turbine. The description in the source suggests it uses special pipes to create something like an artificial thunderstorm, a high-tension charge.
Which transforms air substances into electrical energies.
That's the claim. And this process supposedly creates a self-boosting physical vacuum and a powerful tornado-like updraft.
Leading to fuelless aircraft.
That's the implication drawn in the source, yes. Aircraft that are sort of pulled forward by the vacuum they create in front of them. And instead of exhaust fumes, it supposedly produces valuable nitrogen compounds.
That's visionary, to say the least. And maybe the biggest one, the suction turbine or implosion machine, patent 1966-80.
This seems central to his energy ideas, described as an inverted pressure turbine. It uses that inward centripetal, radially axial motion to compress water or air, creating intense negative pressure of vacuum and accelerating the fluid almost frictionlessly.
Generating diamagnetism, levitation, like the calm center of a vortex.
That's how the source describes it, yes. Like the cool eye of a tornado. And the power claims are, frankly, astounding. The text mentions one instance of a 9-fold surplus of electrical output compared to input.
9 times the energy out than in. That would change everything.
Absolutely. It's presented in the source as the key to solving energy and fuel problems in a super ideal way, even helping to rebuild the Earth's vital energies, unlike destructive conventional hydroturbines.
And there were other things, too, briefly.
Yeah, the sources mention a climator for natural heating and cooling, and repulsators for agriculture, boosting soil fertility. It shows he was trying to apply these core principles across many areas. Now, it's important to note the sources are really, really critical of conventional science and technology based on this whole nature versus anti-nature motion idea.
Oh, yeah, you can't miss that. The text portrays Schauberger seeing mainstream science as fundamentally mistaken, built on a tragic error, really.
And leading us down a pretty bleak path. Destroying water, forests, soil, causing diseases like cancer, even mental and moral decline. All link back to technologies that fight nature instead of working with it.
And the source material claims Schauberger believed his work wasn't just ignored, but actively suppressed.
Yes, that narrative is strong in the text. Partly, perhaps, because scientists were stuck in old ways of thinking, the mechanistic worldview, but also suggestions of deliberate suppression.
Why?
Because, according to the source, his discoveries fundamentally threatened powerful economic interests built on our current, often wasteful, energy and resource models. Free energy doesn't sell oil, right?
The sources share some stories about this resistance, don't they?
They do. Anecdotes about university professors admitting privately he was right but couldn't support him publicly, about his prototypes being stolen, being called a madman just for saying water was the blood of the earth.
And even threats if he tried to demonstrate his tech widely.
That's mentioned too, yes. The strong implication in the source material is that the failure to adopt these ideas wasn't because they didn't work, from Schauberger's viewpoint, but because powerful forces actively prevented it.
So, despite all that alleged opposition, the secret that the source is present isn't some, hidden equation. It's about unlocking nature's own creative power.
Exactly. And the key, according to this material, is understanding and then applying nature's methods.
Yeah.
Its specific kind of motion, using those cooling temperature gradients and encouraging transformation through implosion, not explosion.
And if we did that, the vision laid out in the source is pretty utopian, isn't it?
It really is. Cost-free, clean energy and transport. Healthy rivers, forests, soil, solutions for food shortages, raw materials, even better health.
So the goal wasn't just better gadgets, it was a fundamental shift, aligning human activity with nature.
That seems to be the core message conveyed in the source material, yes.
Right.
A move away from dominating nature towards cooperating with its life-building processes.
Well, that was quite a journey through Viktor Schauberger's world, as presented in these sources. A world where water can heal itself through swirling, turbines create vacuums to pull things along, and copying nature promises clean, abundant energy.
It really is a stark contrast to the technology we see around us every day, isn't it? It offers, well, both incredible hope and a pretty biting critique of the path we've taken.
Yeah, whether you find these ideas hard to believe or maybe incredibly exciting, they definitely give you a different angle for looking at the big challenges we face: energy, the environment, maybe even our health.
And we've really only skimmed the surface here, based on the excerpts provided. There's so much more in the source material about the specific materials he used, the exact geometric shapes, the biological connections he made.
Thinking about all this frictionless flow, power increasing with velocity, energy from implosion, what's the one thing that really stands out to you from this dive into Schauberger's ideas?
That's a tough one. Maybe just the sheer audacity of challenging fundamental physics based on observing nature. And for a final thought to leave you with, if these sources are even partly right, if harnessing nature's creative motion could solve our biggest problems, well, what does that say about our current understanding and the choices we've made about how we interact with our planet?